If you love a prodigal, you can discover help and hope for your wilderness journey right here at When You Love a Prodigal, and also help and hope for your own life journey. And like I always do, I encourage you to notice things that you want to apply, things that really will help you in your journey, uh, and to take a minute to write them down. I mean, some of you will remember, but most of us, if we don't write it down, we forget. So I just want you to come away with really practical help. Now, today I am chatting with Nancy Squires, and she's a new friend. We had a wonderful conversation recently, and we're looking forward to this one today as well. And she has a ministry called the Just Be Held Retreats, and we're going to get to learn what those are, how they came about, and how you might engage. So thank you, Lord, for that. I just pray that you would guide our conversation today. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you, Judy. I am so honored that you would have me on and find out about Just Be Held, and hopefully this will be encouraging to your audience and gives a little bit of hope to some ladies who struggle.
I think it will, definitely. So let's dive right in. I loved learning about your ministry, and I think these friends will as well. Just Be Held Retreats. Where did that name come from? The song or something else?
So the song was my inspiration for the name. So there were some many dark days for me living in the chaos and pain of some of my prodigal kids, and that is plural. Um, and the song Just Be Held was on repeat for me. And it literally, in the song, it says, freedom and surrender, lay it down and let it go. And then later in the song, you're not alone, stop holding on and just be held. And I finally had to take those words to heart. And that was my repeat. And it just got me through some dark times. So once, and I'll go in a little bit more in a moment, but once I got maybe on the other side a little bit, or through some of the darkest woods, that just be held. Like God just hold me. I was being held by him. So that is where the name came from.
That is where it came from. Well, go ahead and give us a little insight into the story that led to it.
Yeah. So, my story, I was what I would call a normal family, I guess. Things were sort of trucking through. I had a husband that traveled all the time. We had 4 kids, and it was about 15 years ago. I got a phone call, and one of my children was cutting, and the person on the other side of the end of the line said, "Did you know?" And I said, "No, I did not." And I spiraled, and I was thrown into a world I didn't want to be part of.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, and thrown into this. What do I do now? Where do I get help? I don't even know how to respond to this child. So it just, I smiled on the outside, but I was crying and screaming on the inside. And God, why are you doing this? With the cutting came mental illness and a lot of other just behaviors that I had to grieve. That's not how my child was or should be or life.
How did this happen?
Right. Like, what is going on? So, anyway, I was in a sort of a dark, that's when I started, I think, Just Be Held, all songs. I have to get into songs, sort of carried me through. And so, this child, we tried to get help, all of that. And then a couple of years later, I had another child, another phone call that ended up, this child was suicidal.
Oh, dear.
And the reason this child was suicidal is, and they came out, they were part of the LGBTQ community, and they were afraid of me. They were afraid not only of what society was going to do, but they were afraid of me and my reaction, um, which broke my heart.
I was going to say, and that was hurtful to you, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was, but it made me go, wait a minute. Like they're afraid of me, but I love them unconditionally. Like I don't be afraid of me. Like I'm supposed to be home base. So that's the moment I decided I didn't have to be right or wrong. I just had to love them. I had to love my kids.
That's about the best decision you could make.
Yeah, and God just told me, hey, you aren't compromising your beliefs. You're
That's
doing
right.
exactly what I'm asking you to do, which is love your kids unconditionally.
Okay, I want you to say that again because I think that's one of the most important things that people whose kids are making decisions we don't like or agree with, that we understand. We don't have to approve of their choices, but we still love them, and that's what they need to hear. They know we don't approve. And so we need to focus on the ways that we can make sure they know they're loved.
Right, right. And my both my children, they were raised in a Christian home, and they led small groups. We read the Bible daily. They told me, Mom, we don't need to hear the Bible verses. We know these are our choices, Mom. These are our choices. Stop with the hounding. And I did. I had to choose to let it go, not to be right or wrong. I had to love unconditionally. That's what God was calling me to do, is love my kids unconditionally. So that's what I did.
And then were there more?
There was more to my story. So this chaos and pain did not stop. Um, you know, the child with mental illness and cutting and all that goes with that continued. Um, we were learning to live and adjust to having a child in the LGBT community and how to love well. Um, then, we moved around a lot. We ended up, I was struggling to find resources. I couldn't find resources for me in the community we were living in. So we actually moved hoping to find better resources, not only for my child, but for my husband and I.
Yes.
And we ended up down in Orlando and Florida and found a great resource that was our lifeline and sort of gave us a little bit of hope and encouragement through that. And then our younger two kids, so we have four kids. The younger two kids were getting older. They were still in elementary school at this time. The other ones were high school and college. And so here we go into middle school, and we had a child that decided drugs and alcohol were going to be his choice. And
Escape.
yeah, the escape from whatever was going on. And maybe, a lot of different things, but that was his escape, his away, his rebellion.
Mhm.
Lots of issues that go hand in hand with that, stolen cars, skipping school, all of that. And
Yeah, I know all of that.
yeah, right? Right. I think a lot of us can relate to that. So, I'm living with the chaos and the pain. Now I have three kids I'm trying to juggle. And there again, I was trying to juggle. This was a whole faith walk for me. And looking back, I can see how God faithfully walked with me with every little incident. And these weren't just one-off incidences. I think we can all relate to that. It's the rebellion one day and the
It's
uh,
ongoing. It might look a little different day to day, but it's happening.
right, right. And I was getting to the point that phone rang and my heart skipped, a beat. So every time. So I just it was a faith walk, and I just had to walk with that.
Yes, they are.
So my chaos, my pain was not over. Just with that, we ended up. There is one of our children. We found out um, another child was suicidal, and
So scary.
it's very scary. This time, I actually found the child, and but all of that was geared around. We found out that they had been um, sexually abused
Yes.
by a distant family member, and
So scary.
God was faithful. He had surrounded this child with a perfect group of adults that I trusted, but I didn't know all of that was going on, and they were very faithfully walking
Yes.
with that child. And let me say, I am saying that child a lot. I do need to clarify this. I'm saying that child or this child. I am protecting my children.
I don't blame you.
They have given me permission to talk about my story, but the details of their stories are their details. So I try to be a little on the maybe vague side and just tell my
And that's
story.
okay. That's fine.
But I just think that's important for me to tell, to say.
Yes, I agree.
But so this child, God was faithful, surrounded this child with a lot of support until that child was ready to come to my father, to his father and I.
And that's okay.
Chaos and pain continued. That wasn't the only thing. I ended up, my husband had an addiction that I could have walked away. I feel like I had cause to walk away. We were on the verge of divorce. It was very hard. God also took my father from me. He died of pancreatic cancer right at the same time I found out about my husband. And so, very, very, and then I had this rebellious teenager, high school person at this point. I had young adults that were struggling to even survive in life. And I had now this child that was suicidal, and we're trying to work with them on the effects of the abuse, the long term effects of that. So, life, chaos and pain, I've lived it.
So were you at a loss for were you ready to throw in the towel to give up, or what happened?
So, God and I have had many, many conversation of what are you doing? Why is this? Why are you putting my family through this? Why so many years? Why time after incident after situation? When is this all going to stop?
How strong do you think I am?
Right? I can't keep going, but he can, and he helped me through it. And I got to a point that I had to let go of the why, and I started thinking about the what. What, God? But God kept telling me, wait, it's not time. And I got to a point, God, in fact, when one of my children came to me that was suicidal, at a point, I said, okay, God. I mean, my first response was, okay, God, what are you going to do with this one? Like, I stopped spiraling and said, what you going to do? How are you going to be glorified through this? And I can't wait to see it. Can't wait to see what you are going to do with the chaos and the pain, because I want to glorify you through it all.
That's a wonderful response.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's a long journey. It wasn't one day I was mad and the next day I was okay, and I'm still not okay. I still go, okay, God, what? Because my story does not have a pretty bow on it yet. I have had other suicidal attempts. I have had 2 beautiful grandchildren born out of wedlock. Our life continues to be chaotic.
It's just the word I was thinking.
But we're all okay. And we have relationship with one another.
Oh, now that's a gift.
So, I know it doesn't always end that way. I am
it doesn't.
very aware of that. But I think the reason the reason is because that's how God wanted it. Let me say that. And God's faithful. And whatever comes, all I know is I can only do what God's told me to do. And that is to love my children unconditionally. My children and I have a relationship. My husband and I are still married. And we have a great relationship. God's walked
Beautiful.
to healing. And I know that doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
But that's what our story is. Everybody's story is different. But everybody, what is in common with all of our stories with our prodigals is God is faithful.
God is faithful, absolutely.
And he's right there. He's with the brokenhearted. He sees every tear, every cry. He's strong enough to take your screaming and yelling at him. He's faithful.
And how did the ministry that you also have now, how did that come about?
So, like I said earlier, I'd gotten to the point I was looking for the what, God? How are you going to be glorified with all of this mess? And I ended up at a retreat, and I didn't know why God had me go. I had a friend that just wanted me to go with her for support. And I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm sort of past the woods. But okay, I'll go. God, what do you want from me? And he very quickly, once I got to the retreat, I woke up the first morning and had some quiet time to myself. And he went, will you rest? Rest. And it wasn't physical rest. It was mental rest. And he said, just rest. Stop thinking. Stop trying to put all these pieces together. Stop trying to solve problems. Stop and rest. Well, the very first session, within the first 2 sentences, the speaker said, rest. And I'm like, okay, God, you have my attention now. Rest. I gotcha. I'll rest. Well, I calmed my mind through this retreat. By the end of the retreat, God gave me my ministry, Just Be Held Ministries. And he told me, I want you to use your pain, chaos and pain, your gift of hospitality and administration, and I want you to hold retreats for ladies. And that is what I did. I left, went to lunch with my husband, and I said, I'm starting retreats. I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know how many, I don't know what's up. I don't know. I'm just doing it. And so I jumped in feet first and developed this retreat for women who have family members with mental illness or addictions, or the ladies are just grieving loss of life expectations. I wanted them to have a reprieve. I wanted them to get away for 48 hours and be able to find rest, hope, encouragement, and connection. It's very small. It's only 24 ladies a retreat twice a year. And that's what I do.
And what happens at these retreats?
So it is incredible what God does. God holds these ladies. The team at Just Be Held loves these ladies, helps them to feel seen, heard, and loved. You don't have to, the ladies that come to this retreat don't have to explain anything. We all get it. Get it.
That's great, because they always, mostly, it's like they don't understand. And so to come to a place where they can be understood, and the pain and the loss and the fear that accompany it. So that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So many days I felt lonely, lost, judged.
Oh, yeah, judged.
I was felt false guilt, what I now know is false guilt. But I I felt alone. And my retreats help ladies feel not alone. They're not alone. So they come to these retreats, and it is so, I love what God does, and He has not failed. We've had 6 retreats already. Everyone, it's the same thing. Friday night, these ladies come. Now, they don't know anybody.
Right.
For the most part. Some people come with friends, but for the most part, everybody's just coming and they don't know anybody. And so you can see the fear on their face. They're sort of holding back. They're guarded because aren't we all, as we walk with our prodigals, guarded?
Oh, yes. People don't want others to know. They fear judgment.
So they do fear that judgment. And so they come on Friday, sort of what's going on. By Sunday, they are laughing. They are smiling. They don't want to leave. They have made new friends. They have heard speakers and talk about hope and encouragement, giving them some tools for themselves.
Like what kind of tools?
So we talk about the cup. The emotional cup is a big one that we talk about. So, what's down in your emotional cup? So we talk about that. We talk about the armor of God and how you can put on the armor of God and you can walk out and be a warrior. One of the retreats, it was you're coming into this, you're leaving the retreat as a battle cry.
Interesting.
Like, that's my battle. Like, I can suit up for God. So there's lots of different things. My retreats are not about the solution to the circumstances at home. That is not my retreat.
Yeah.
My retreat is for the ladies that come and their hearts. I want them to find rest. So rest, it might be physical. I had one lady that disappeared for 5 hours, and I was like, where'd she go? And my retreats are small, so it's not like I'm keeping up with you. I just noticed she wasn't in the group. I noticed she didn't go to small group. And I'm like, where is she? Well, she popped up. She showed up. She took a 5-hour nap.
Sounds awesome.
Right? Right? So I was like, great. So physical rest, mental rest, just time to a lot of ladies, there's some swings and you can put your feet up. It's the hammock swings. A lot of my ladies disappeared at those. How often do we, when we're in this chaos and pain at home, have a chance just to let it just relax?
Yeah, you're right.
We do that. Hope and encouragement, focusing on look to God. You can find joy. Joy is there amongst the chaos and pain. You can have joy because we have God. We have Jesus. We have the Holy Spirit in us.
So do you have activities or conversations or guided things that help them to come to that place?
Yeah. So we do large groups. There's 4 of them throughout the whole weekend. And after every large group, we have a small group. That small group, and we divide them as best we can into maybe situations, if we can. Yeah. We all have things in common. Doesn't matter what our situations are. But we divide them into small groups, and 5 ladies, 5, 6, maybe 7, but we try to keep it at 5 or 6 ladies, and you assimilate what you just heard. So it gives them a chance to sort of process what they heard. Here, you do not have to tell your stories. Some ladies do, some ladies don't. And that is perfectly fine. We are not here to get, they don't have to reveal everything. But we do want them just to assimilate what the speakers are talking about. They may talk about their emotional, I never thought about that emotional cup. Wait a minute, that false guilt, the shame, the the fear, the anger that's down in that cup. What is that? And how can we counter that? How can we counter that? How can we put on and suit up with the armor of God? Um, what are these tools that we're talking about? Self-care, um, things like that. And how can you implement that when you go home? So that's what our small groups are for. Then we have a whole
Okay.
afternoon of free time so they can go hiking. It's in the beautiful North Georgia mountains. So they can go hiking if they want. They can walk around. There's a lake. Sometimes we have the kayaks and paddleboards available to us at this where we hold this. Um, and so people get out on the lake, they walk around the lake, they sit and talk. We have crafts in during free time. It's
Do they have to do the crafts?
no, they don't have to. I am not a crafty person, and I will.
I'm not at all. And I can remember so many retreats where they expect you to do crafts, and I'm like, I think I'll go read a book. So,
Nope, don't have to. We provide all of that environment so that ladies get to
right.
do what they want to do. Like, go do what you want to do. And make I want this retreat to be for the ladies and
Yeah.
let them make it what they need. What do you need? We also always have a prayer warrior on site. So
Good.
so if they want to just sit with someone in prayer, they can. They can do that. They can sit and talk. Many times there's some rocking chairs out by a fire pit, and they sit and then we just talk and have conversations. Um, at
Sounds pretty heavenly.
Yeah, at night there is fire pits, so we light those fire pits, and we all sit around the chairs. Excuse me, sit around the rocking chairs and have conversations, like not about our situations, but just conversations. What's your favorite movie or whatever. And then some people do. I mean, we do. Hey, can you help me walk through maybe how I can handle some things? There are conversations like that. Don't get
Right. Where people even share how they've learned to respond, to deal with, to love in spite of, and that kind of thing.
correct. Correct. So the retreat is just a place to find God, a place to look to God. We encourage, just let's look to God. We have wonderful worship music that sets the tone before every large group, and the ladies are fabulous. And just tuning our hearts toward God because He's faithful. He's right there. He's holding you, and you're not alone. And so, hopefully, by the end of the retreat, they have found rest. They have a little bit more of hope and encouragement to walk forward on their journey. And they've connected not only with God, but with others. And they now know they're not alone.
And even though you don't focus on solutions, how to handle it, they will undoubtedly, between the peace that they get, the hope that they also will hear some stories and get some ideas of things that have been helpful, I would imagine.
Yes, they do. They do. So, just like I briefly told my story, I go a little bit more in depth with my story. I tell some resources that have helped me. There is one of our sessions that's nothing about it except tools to how to get back into life. And we lay out a lot of resources.
Well, I would be grateful if you would send me those so I can put them in the show notes and people could pick up from those. Some of those, the ones that are broad enough to be helpful to a number of people.
Yes, we can do that. So we talk about that last session is all about, okay, so how are you going to invest in rest? How are you going to invest in hope? How are you going to invest in encouragement? And how are you going to invest in connection? So here you are, you've come off of an off ramp for 48 hours and, the highway of life, and you've come off on an off ramp, you've filled up, at the
Hit pause.
yeah, you hit pause, you took a little break, now you're on the on ramp, and that's when we start talking about the investment in all of those and what does that look like and what are some resources you can use and have.
I love it. That just sounds really wonderful. And so I would encourage our listeners to think, uh, since your retreats are not large and you can't open them to the world at this point, how would you encourage people to get that kind of benefit um, if they're not where you live and not running into you and the people who attend? If they live on the other side of the world, of course you don't. You live all over the world, don't you?
I do live all over the world. So for your listeners, I am a nomad, recent nomad, and I travel the world with my husband. So you are right that I come back to North Georgia twice a year and put on these retreats. We actually have had people from Canada. We've
Really?
had people, yes, people from Seattle, Washington have come. So they fly, a lot of people, some people fly in. And we have shuttles from the Atlanta airport up to the retreats. So, but I normally about 4 months before my retreats open up registration. And so my retreats are usually in August. I may change it to September this next year, but August and February. So they can sign up to come to the retreat. But if they can't come to the retreat, we also offer scholarships. But they can apply for scholarships. But if they can't come to the retreat, I just encourage them. I have a page of resources.
Good.
Some of the resources that I have direct you to other people's resources. So there are resources out there. There are from individual resources like individual coaching to group virtuals, even. There are a lot of virtual groups that I recommend. So, and they're on my page. So that, yeah, if you can't, I highly recommend you find a group that, whether it's virtual or not, that or in person, that you can connect with women that understand and get it.
And maybe they could contact you and get input.
Yes, they can. Yes, they can. Nancy at justbeheld.org. Nancy at justbeheld.org. I would love to talk with somebody and help direct them. I can help talk to them. I'm not an expert. I am just a mom.
But you're experienced.
I'm a mom and a wife that, yes, experience. I've walked it and I can tell you what I've done. So
kind of wrapping this up, how can you just share with our listeners what are the most important takeaways that you would want them to come away with to change maybe the dynamic in their family or the peace in their heart, or what are the most important things that will help them go forward and be patient waiting on what God's doing?
Give yourself grace. You're grieving the loss of life expectations.
Yeah.
You're grieving. So give yourself some grace. Allow yourself to have self-care. Allow yourself to have self-care. You cannot help anyone else if you are empty.
That's true.
Yeah. Quiet time with God. Walks. Those groups.
What is one of the most important things you've learned about God?
He is faithful. He is faithful and he is right with me.
And he knows what's going on.
He does. He's right there. He sees every tear, every everything our kids do, think he's right there. We're not alone. We are not alone in this. He's faithful.
Nancy, thank you so much. I will put connection information and resources in our show notes so that people can just get some things that will be helpful to them. But I love what you're doing because having walked through it myself, it's a pretty hard journey. And it's real easy to get overwhelmed and to feel like reminding God, I can't do this. This is beyond me and beyond my capacity. And also to recognize the fact that we get judged, that our children or husband also make such choices. What did you do wrong? I actually have a friend who, when she talked about both of her children who were making some not great choices, and she was sharing with friends so that they would help her, encourage her, pray with her. They said, well, tell us what you did wrong so we don't do it. And I went, no.
Been there.
And so one of the things you're doing is providing a place for people to rest. And that's so important. I just had somebody tell me I probably ought to rest more. And giving us grace. Grace is probably my most important word. When in the years when our son was the hardest, God said to me, when you make mistakes with this boy, and you will, and yes, I certainly have, he says, make them on the side of grace. So it's not only grace for ourselves, but even giving grace to the ones who are breaking our hearts, who are endangering themselves. And so thank you. Such a good, hopeful thing. And if you can't get into Nancy's retreats, the Just Be Held, just think about that. I'm just going to go and let God hold me. What a great thought. But also, maybe God wants you, speaking to my listeners, maybe he's got such a thing for you, and you can learn from Nancy and do something similar. Or you can try and go. You better sign up fast, though. I would imagine that they fill up pretty quickly. But any last words besides grace? You can say grace again.
Always grace. Always grace. God's faithfulness and grace to others and yourself. I will say, justbeheldministries.org is my website. Justbeheldministries.org is the website that has all the information about the retreats. It also has information about my ministry as a whole. It has all my resources on it. It has a page for donations so that we can fund those scholarships for ladies. So justbeheldministries.org is the place to find me, besides my email.
And we will put all of that in the show notes for the podcast. And people I trust you'll get some contacts because I think you have a lot to offer.
Well, I want these ladies, I want your listeners to hear you're not alone and you're gonna be okay.
Thank you. Thanks so much. God bless you.
Thank you, Judy.